Welcome to the Purpose Driven Mom Show, episode 404. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what you do when your big goals start to scare you. We're going to talk about how do we handle the fear around our goals. And also, I'll share some stories of times I've done it well and times I have not today. We'll do some examples and some non-examples. Listen, if you want to also just do me a quick favor, pause real quick, head over to your podcast player. I would really appreciate a rating or a review. We are hitting our anniversary, our almost 5-year anniversary of the Purpose Driven Mom Show, and we're getting really ramped up and excited for it. So if you listen, if this has blessed you in any sort of way, ratings, reviews are a great way for more people to find the show. So we would appreciate it if you haven't left it yet. Let's talk now about stuff that scares us, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about today kind of like why things make us afraid when it comes to our goals. How do we combat that when we're feeling overwhelmed? And what do you do when you don't do it well? Okay. Now, I have a few goals right now that are scaring the crap out of me that I will share with you right now. By the time this airs, next week actually is going to be my 10-mile run. I have run this race before. If you're in the Philadelphia area, it's called Broad Street Run. It's a pretty big run. It's nice though. It's flat. I did it 3 times pre-kids and once post-kid. And the last time I did it post-kids, it was awful. My headphones wouldn't connect and I ran 10 miles with no music, not very trained. And I wanted to do it again this year and I am scared out of my mind. So I will use this example as we kind of go through like what I'm doing in my training because I am frightened to finish this 10 miles. And the other example I want to share with you is we are hosting our in-person event. You can go to purposedrivenmom.com/conference. If there are still seats left by the time this is coming out, we're hoping to get sold out pretty quick. There are only 50 general admission seats, 15 VIP. So you'll want to head over and get there, but it is so scary. It's so scary. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the fears are behind those 2 goals that I know are big for me and just kind of, how I'm working to combat them. Okay. So fear is something that exists, right? It exists in our brain. We have our flight or fight response. Fear is meant to kind of keep us safe sometimes. But I think also fear can keep us stuck. Our big goals trigger all this fear in us because of the what if. There's so many things we could be afraid of. And I want to talk a little bit about like those things that we could actually get scared of because I don't think we kind of think about it enough. I think that we're often just saying, okay, well, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. And let's be real, that's one of those, right? Like we could be afraid that we're going to fail. But also, what if we're afraid we're going to succeed? And I don't think a lot of people are talking about the fear of success. I think it's not a thing that gets brought up. So let's talk about these 2. Let's kick off with fear of failure and fear of success. Fear of failure is real. Are people going to judge me? What are people going to think? I'm going to try something again and then I'm going to fail. I'm going to tell you, I have trained for different races multiple times and have not done it. My brain wants to keep me safe. My brain wants to say, listen, don't do this goal again because it's too big. You're going to fail. You're going to feel terrible and you're not going to want to keep, running again or whatever the goal is. But I also have this thing that I deal with called the fear of success. And maybe you can relate to this one. My fear of success for me shows up when things get too big because I'm afraid of what if this does work? Have you ever had a goal like that where you're afraid, like, wait, this could potentially work out? And if this does work out, what does it mean? That's the question I want you to ask yourself often. What does this mean? Or what am I making it mean? Because the truth of what it means isn't always, right, that. It's what our brain is saying. The fear of success for me happens a lot in my business. Every stage, every level, something gets scary for me. And I've thought about this before, like, what if this does work out? What if I do this in-person event and I love it? And I realize this is a thing. I want to be doing these in-person events. I want to continue to do this. I want to start speaking on stages. I mean, that's a good thing, right? But then my brain, that piece of my brain gets scared. And it says, but what if? What if I do want to do that? And what if in doing that, I spend more time away from my family? What if my kids start to be like, where's mommy? And my husband starts to feel resentful. What if in traveling so much to speak on stages, I don't get to spend as much time with my community, my Purpose Driven Mom Club? What if I can't handle it? What if it gets me back to working all these hours because it's going well? The fear of success is also real. And when your big goals scare you like that, it's important to stop yourself and say, what am I really afraid of? Because I think a lot of times we just think like, I'm afraid of failing. But what if you're afraid of succeeding? what if you're afraid of the repercussions of succeeding? Let's talk about some other things you might be afraid of, okay? And I think for moms, this is a big one, right? What if you have the fear of not being good enough? What if that imposter syndrome is like, I can't handle this, right? Say you decide I have this big goal and I want to pull my kids from school and I want to homeschool. What if I'm not good enough to do it? What if I can't be like that Pinterest mom or that Instagram mom that I see? What if we have this belief that will never be enough? Does that happen for you? You see somebody else maybe going after a goal and doing a thing you want to do on social media, and instead of thinking I could do this, your brain immediately goes to imposter syndrome. Immediately, well, I could never do this. And listen, this happened to me with the event. I was like, who would come to my conference? I could never do this. No one's going to show up. I'm not like those other people who can have these events and have people buy tickets. And that was what I like to call my anxiety brain. I always tell my therapist I have anxiety brain and I have truth brain, right? So because I'm a life coach, I can kind of go through and analyze some things and figure out like what exactly I'm getting stuck on, right? And I know for me, that voice, that inner critic, we call her, right? Like that voice, they are saying things like, you can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not that person. You don't have it in you. Or they're also saying, like, there's not enough people out there, right? There's also that fear of, I can't do this goal because. That's the imposter syndrome. That's my anxiety brain. But that's not my truth brain. So I always ask myself, like, well, what's the truth in this? But maybe that's your fear. The fear is I can try, but I'm going to fail because I'm not good enough. There's another fear that's, I think, maybe not specific to moms, but comes up a lot for us moms. And that is the fear of kind of neglecting the family responsibilities. I have this personal goal, and what if I want to go after it? Running. Let's talk about the running example. Being a quote unquote distance runner, and I say quote unquote here because I'm slow. I'm a jog walker. I only do one long run a week, and the most I've gotten to is 7 miles at this point. So, I say all that with a caveat of, in the way I do it. But it takes time. Why? Because I'm slow, because it takes me a long time. I walk like a 13 to 14-minute mile because I'm run walking. And so to do 7, 8, 9, 10 miles takes a long time. And so doing this had this fear of like, I'm never going to be able to fit it in my schedule if I have to take this time. Because not only do I need an hour and a half, I need 2 hours to run on long run days as the running progressed. I am red as a tomato, friend. I am beet red and sweaty. I need an hour, and I'm not exaggerating, from the time I'm done with my run, walk, jog, to the time I'm ready, to the time I'm done showering, cooled off, and things like that, like a full hour. So in reality, training takes me anywhere between 1 and 2.5 hours at this moment for my longer runs. That makes me feel in my irrational brain, oh, if I'm taking these 3 hours for me, when am I going to do XYZ around the house, right? Also, I've been running during the day for my long runs because weekends just don't work for me. Kids have sports, whatever. But the weekdays, I can take a time block, either like a 9 to 12 time block once a week. On Fridays, I tend to do my long runs. Well, if I'm doing that, then I'm shirking away from my work responsibilities because I'm supposed to. I should. We always talk about the shoulds, right? I should be working because my kids are at school, not quote selfishly. And I say it in quotes because we know it's not real, going for a leisurely run, like doing this thing for me. That's fear brain. That's not real, right? That is my brain saying that there's this hierarchy of what I need to get done, and family has to come before Cara. And we know that that's trash. Like everyone can kind of come at this equal playing field, right? It's not that I have to come before my family. It's we can all come together as long as mom's not trailing all the way behind, right? So there's this fear of neglecting your responsibilities. There's also this fear of the time. I cannot balance what I need to do as a mom with the car shuffle and all the things that are on my list with my personal goals. And so I'm afraid to even try because I'm afraid I will be disappointed. That ever happened? I over the summer, was it? I wanted to take ice skating classes. It was sometime in the last year. They offer ice skating classes for adults. I don't know how to ice skate, and I'm actually petrified to ice skate. And I was thinking about going to take it, but all of these fears started to come up for me. Fear of the judgment, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm a grown up. I don't know how to ice skate. I'm gonna fall, whatever. Fear of if I take these classes, then like, I will have to sacrifice something somewhere. And then that other fear of, well, my kids should probably take the ice skating classes first because they don't know how to ice skate. And they actually had youth and adult classes at the same time, but I was so afraid to sign up for them because I thought, well, what if my kids are in class and they need me? Something happens and they get hurt and they need me and I'm in my class. And I started to feel selfish. Like, do you hear that? This is a real fear. So again, all your feelings, all of those things, like they're valid, right? But are they truth? And I think that is the thing we need to address with our fear. My fear is valid. My fear is real. My fear is where I'm at right now. Like all of our feelings, it's valid. But is it the actual truth, right? Am I selfish for taking time to run? A little, but is it a bad thing? Like, it's not a bad thing to be selfish in moderation. If we are not a little selfish, as all humans are, we would never do anything for ourselves, right? So things like I talk to moms who are like, oh, maybe I want to go back to school. My husband and I was just talking about this because he's thinking about going back for his doctorate. There's a lot of fear in that because it's the balancing of me managing home and work and all those things. There has to be a sacrifice, right? Or I talked to so many moms who are scared of starting the business. I really want to start a home-based business. I'm afraid I'm not going to make enough money. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the time for it, right? But having patience with yourself, going in as a student and learning, taking these small steps can help you combat this fear. It's a normal fear to have, right? I'd actually be like more afraid if I wasn't afraid of things sometimes. But it's when the fear becomes debilitating where you feel like you just can't do anything. That's the problem, right? So what do you do? How do you go from this goal is so big and I'm afraid to how do I make it actually work? How do I start working even if I fail? One surprise, surprise here. Do you have it broken into small chunks? You need to set goals that are realistic for your time season, but also chunked out. 15 minutes at a time, small intervals. And that's how I kind of started with running. I was running couch to 5K, started at 2 minutes. It was a 5-minute walk, a 2-minute jog, and a 5-minute walk, right? And that didn't take a lot of my time. And then slowly I started increasing the amount of time I ran. So I was able to kind of see how adding an extra 5 minutes here, like, wasn't the end of the world. My kids were fine. And then adding another 5 minutes, kids are still fine. We have enough time to get ready for school, right? Making sure that your goal is broken down into manageable chunks will allow you to feel like it's more realistic and a little bit less scary. When we go with this big goal, like I remember when I wrote the book, I was like, I'm going to write a book. That is the scariest goal in my brain. Like, who am I to write a book? I'm never going to have the time for it, whatever. So when I took that big goal of I want to write a book, and I broke it down into all the steps, right? From mind mapping to outlining to drafting to, design, et cetera, and all the things you have to do to write the book. And then I broke them down into how many I was going to do each week and what it was going to look like. I felt like I could take a breath. I felt like it didn't feel so big. And so do this with some of your goals. Kind of make sure they're realistic, make sure they're broken down, make sure that they are more doable for the time that you have. Okay. We try to make these big audacious goals and they're great, but if they don't make sense for the time that you have, then you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to quit, right? Now, the other thing that's going to be really important and kind of pushing past the fear is having a support network. I talk about community all the time, and I think that we don't realize the impact and the importance of having your people while you're going after big, scary goals. Okay. When I was running, I was sharing with my friends who weren't running, so they didn't really care, but I still shared with them. I was like, I'm going for my long run. If I don't text you when I'm done, like I might have fallen down, like make sure I text you, like just checked in. They have been cheering me on. I joined some Facebook groups of people. This one's the sloth running group. So it's like slower runners. I follow people on TikTok who are realistic and slower runners. I have a community so that when it gets scary, when I don't want to do it, I can talk through myself and say, you know what? Who can I lean on? All right. You also might need a support network so that you can have time for your goals. So this might be things like, hey, I know this person lives near me. They also are trying to work from home. Maybe we can do childcare swaps a little bit. Like you take a couple hours, I'll take a couple hours, and we'll make that work. Okay. Showing up places, having accountability buddies. This is why things like the Purpose Driven Mom Club are so beneficial because you get to show up and have people root you along the way. And when you get in your head, because we know that it's all up here, you have somebody to talk you through. Okay. And then last up, I think one of the strategies that I don't always lean to because it's hardest for me, but I think it is important is kind of like that emotional awareness, that emotional management, if you will. And these are things that are going to help the mindset of it all. So journaling is a huge one. I like to kind of always, when I go through and I journal most things, I always act through and I'll put like, what's the feeling, right? Like, what am I feeling? Why do I think I'm feeling that way? What is the truth? And that allows me to be like, oh, I could never run 10 miles. Well, so okay, so that's the statement. What am I feeling? I'm feeling hopeless, honestly. I'm feeling embarrassed that I said I was going to do this and I can't. Okay. Why do I feel that way? Because this run was hard and I can't imagine adding 2 more miles to this or whatever it is. But what's the truth? The truth is, I've proven that my body and my mind are capable enough to go a distance, and I will do my best and get it done. Like, that's the real truth. And going through and kind of journaling your thoughts, your feelings, your fears, I think can help you really just get a handle of it all, you know? Things like mindfulness are also helpful, meditation, gratitude. These allow you to kind of take that fear and channel it into a different emotion, right? You can say, this is the fear I feel, I'm scared of this. What else is this fear in my body? Well, it's excitement for sure. Like, am I afraid of showing up next week and doing this race? I am, right? I'm afraid I won't be able to finish it. I'm afraid I'm going to look redder than red and everyone's going to laugh at me, right? I don't know. There's lots of fears in my head. But I'm also really excited because I know, like, again, truth brain, anxiety brain. My truth brain knows I'm going to be able to do it. And my truth brain is, we've done this run before. So that endorphin feeling when I'm done is chef's kiss. It is fabulous. So I am excited. I'm proud of myself for how far I've come. Acknowledge what are the other feelings, right? That are not just fear. What are those feelings for you? And I think that is going to help you reframe that fear into something else. I want to encourage you right now to look at your goals for moving into May. What are the ones that scare you? What are the ones that you have fear around? And go through some of these exercises and ask yourself, what am I really scared of? Why am I scared of it? And what can I do to help combat that fear? Your fear and emotions, they're real. Let's honor them and make a plan to help you move forward on your goals. Okay. So show notes, they're going to be at purposedrivenmom.com/podcast 404. And again, if you haven't today, please head over, leave a rating or review. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. Or if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for hanging out.